Uh, I want to play for you a clip from the hero teacher who got shot as he was disarming the individual who was attacking people. I want to play this for you because I think this illustrates why we need to have and why it is a very effective way to protect our schools to have teachers who have been vetted and can protect and will protect their lives as well as the students and put their lives at risk. This is a guy who he was unarmed, but he attacked and took down the shooter even though he got shot himself. Here's that clip.
First off, as a person who isn't looking for attention, nor entirely comfortable with the situation I'm currently in, I want to make it clear that my actions on that day, in my mind, were the only acceptable actions I could have done given the circumstances. I deeply care for my students and their well-being, so that is why I did what I did that day.
And that's the school shooting in Indiana. He says, I was there for the well-being of my students. It was the only thing that I could do. I think the most effective security for the schools would be to have teachers like that, and there's many of them. He's not the only one, who would volunteer, who would lay down their lives, who would protect their students, who would be there, who would not be identified. Let's not have them have to go up against these shooters empty-handed, because the culture that we have created, the culture is what is generating these shooters. We'll be right there. Alabama school administrators, not teachers, but administrators, who get approval from local authorities and who go through training will be permitted to have guns at schools under a new state program. And here's what they have to do in order to be in that program. They have to have an Alabama school administrator certificate. They have to have a concealed carry pistol permit. They have to work at a school that doesn't have a school resource officer. If they've got school resource officers, you don't apply, even if you get all the rest of the stuff. They have to pass drug screening, mental health assessment, a stress test. They have to be sworn in as a reserve deputy county sheriff. They have to undergo mandatory training designed by Alabama law enforcement agency. They have to be subject to random drug screening, training recertification, annual mental health and stress assessments. And it doesn't include teachers. I think that it's great to have this. I think they should have very stringent requirements on them. Maybe not have to swear them in as a law enforcement officer or whatever. And I don't think they should limit it to the administrators. We homeschool, and if you attack our homeschool, you're going to have the administrator, you're going to have the chief teacher, and you're going to have all the students shooting at you. That's one of the reasons we do that, because we want to protect our kids. And we're not just interested in protecting their body only. My primary concern, and that of my wife, was to protect their minds and their souls. Yes, we want to protect their bodies, but that's the big issue here. I think the institutional schools are a foundational flaw of our society, and it is a flaw that has been put there by design. This has always been a goal of the Marxists and the Socialists, to have compulsory government education run by the state. And again, it has been the strategy of all these people who seek to dominate us, going all the way back to Plato's Republic. Oh, we don't want them to even know who their parents are, said Plato. We will raise them. We will have the state be the parent, the only parent that they know. They won't even know who their parents are. This has always been the dream of tyrants and dictators. It's the dream of the Marxists and the Socialists, who are tyrants and dictators. But the Washington Times has an article here. Educational decline, homeschooling is surging as parents are seeking a safer option for their children. And again, this is not just about protecting their bodies, but protecting their mind and their soul. Maybe you'd be interested in that. Maybe you'd be interested in even questioning what the goal of the institutional education system is for your kids. What is their definition of education? We talk about education and schools. We say schools. We can't, in most of our conversation, we can't separate education from schooling. They're very different things. Education is very different from the system that you use to educate people. But they talked to a guy who's president of Homeschool Association in Louisiana. He said, parents, yes, are increasingly concerned about the violence, the bullying, and the unsafe environment. He says, I think, though, what happens with these school shootings is that they're the straws that broke the camel's back. I don't think it's the major decision maker, but it's in the back of the parents' minds. Then they talked to the president of the National Home Education Research Institute in Oregon. He's been doing homeschool research for 33 years. He said the top 3 reasons that parents choose to homeschool their kids are desire to provide religious instruction or different values than those that are offered in public schools. And if you haven't noticed how that has changed so radically, I mean, just from the snowflake attitudes and the all the racism that is being taught. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. And when I say racism, I truly mean that. I mean, there is a virulent racism of the left, and it is being taught. But anyway, they say dissatisfaction with the academic curriculum. That's right. 90% of the kids in the most expensive school districts like New York, Boston, Washington, D.C., where they're spending over $20,000 in those $20,000 to $23,000 a year per pupil. In those districts, they're getting illiteracy rates from 80 to 90+%. Same thing with math. They're not getting anything for their money. He said most parents homeschool for more than one reason. When we ask families why they homeschool, near the top nowadays is a concern for the environment of the schools. That includes safety, but also the pressure to get into drugs, the pressure to get into sexual activity. It includes all of that. And then they point out that although the U.S. Department of Education report estimates that homeschooling has been flat since 2012, the guy who's been doing the research for 30 years says that if they look at the figures that the 15 states that track homeschoolers provide, because there's only 15 states that even track homeschooling. Like here in Texas, they don't do that. But if you look at the ones that do track homeschooling, he said you see a 25% increase in the last 4 years between 2012 and 2016. In that same period, the U.S. school-age population grew by 2%. So while the general population schooling grew by 2%, homeschooling grew by 25%. He said the bottom line summary is that it's been growing at an estimated 2 to 8% per year and that it's been compounded. In Louisiana, going back to Mr. Chin, he said they do ask the homeschoolers to report their kids. They said the number has grown up to, there were 30,000 registered in January, up from 18,000 to 20,000 in 2011. He said it has exploded in our state. If homeschoolers were their own school district in our state, we would be the 6th largest school district in the state. And here in Texas, where they don't require registration, he said we have more students being homeschooled in Texas than we have in traditional private schools. And that's a figure that is quoted by a number of state officials.